All right. Well, welcome fans and welcome to the Environmental Transformation Podcast. We have our guest here is Abby Ferri. She's a certified safety professional and we're so excited to have her on the show today. Abby, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so exciting. A certified safety professional.
Certified safety professional, man. I've been doing these podcasts on the credentials in the industry. And so the last one on the episode here is going to be the safety professional. And there's so much to cover on safety these days, especially, given the pandemic we're dealing with. This has been, how that is, how the role of the safety professional is playing in the industry. So, I guess I gave the listeners a little bit of an introduction about you already, so they kind of know a little bit about you. But let's talk a little bit how you got involved with safety from, you're starting your career out.
Yeah, so like with a lot of safety professionals, it was kind of by accident. Ha ha. I was I was working for a construction office, and there were two people that were never there, and I thought, wow, I still put a paycheck at their desk, and then the paycheck's gone. Who are these people? What do they do? And
What
I
are those guys
learned
do?
they were the safety guys. So I
Ah,
said, I want to be a safety guy. And at the time I was in college and finished my undergrad early. My undergrad was in exercise science, and
okay.
I have a minor in psychology. And so I didn't know until later that these really align well for a well-rounded safety professional.
Yes,
So
they
I
do.
learned from the two safety guys that they went through this master's degree program that was at my college at University of Minnesota Duluth, where they have a Master of Environmental Health and Safety program. And it's a 1-year master's. So I
Oh,
finished my undergrad early, got
overachiever.
the 1-year master's, and knew, just a little. I knew I wanted to do construction,
Right.
mainly because I just wanted something different every day, and I wanted to be outside and wear jeans. So those are my
Uh-huh.
career requirements, and safety fit the bill. And I've been in construction safety really ever since. Even before graduation from the MEHS program, I had a job lined up in construction safety, and safety's been a great industry for me.
Oh yeah, it's been, it's essential to any industry really. But well, when did you learn about the certified safety professional credential in your, your career?
I was trying to think the other day in anticipation of this interview, like, how did I find out about the CSP? Because at the time, which would have been, I guess, 2008-ish, because you had to have at least 5 years to sit for the ASP and
Right.
then sit for the CSP, which I did pretty much boom, boom, one right after the other. And I don't remember who I can credit with telling me about it. I just learned about it and knew it was something I wanted to pursue. Mainly because at the time there weren't a lot of construction safety professionals that had a CSP credential. So I wanted to be different and set myself apart and go after another academic thing, because at that time I still wanted to do that sort of thing.
Still
uh,
learning. Right.
yeah, I mean, I still learn all the time, like to this
Sure.
day, of course, but
You were
um
hungry.
yeah, like the desire for a certification now,
Right.
not so much.
Well, yeah.
You,
Now you've
you
kind of
know,
reached the top, so to speak, of that part of the profession, and now it's time to really kind of mentor others, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm happy I have it. The CSP, I think, has been good to me. There were some jobs that I had years ago, I guess not that long ago, but where they required a CSP
Right.
with 10 plus years of experience to be on these high level construction projects at a military base. So I'm glad that I had the credential, because I could, get these jobs that were awesome, lucrative, and
Well, yeah,
interesting.
you talk about the, the requirement of the credential, and we, some of the other podcast shows we've done is that, that credential is kind of like a barrier of entry. If you don't have it, you can't quite get in there sometimes, So I think, what, for the listeners, trying to obtain their credential, what's involved with becoming a CSP?
So I alluded to it a little bit. At first, you have to have that ASP credential, which requires 5 years experience in the field.
Hmm.
So first, it's years of experience. And
Right.
then after that, it's really on you to do the studying and figure out how you're going to prepare yourself based on the exam blueprint, which there's a new blueprint every so often that they change the requirements or change the testing parameters and all these things. So it's really up to the individual on how they're going to prepare themselves. And I get instant messages, or I guess direct messages, DMs and emails and phone calls
Yeah.
frequently about,
Right.
how did you prepare for the CSP? And I have to laugh sometimes because it's been so long that the exam blueprint has changed. The methods of preparing for the exam have completely changed. So
Okay.
I'll respond to people and say, well, I used the SPAN CD-ROM discs and did the practice exams. And people are like, what?
CD-ROMs? Really? What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Like, so if that gives you any indication, it's been a while and my advice is practically useless.
Just Google it. That's what I tell them now. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's apps now. I mean, we did not have apps,
Right.
there's a pocket prep app is what it's called. And I guess a lot
Okay.
of people have had success with that. So,
Oh, okay. Good.
but me personally, I joke, but I did, besides the CD-ROM, I did for both the ASP and the CSP, I went through the ASSPs, the ASSE at the time. I went through their week-long exam prep courses. So
Right.
for each
Okay.
exam, yeah, I did the 1 week prep course and I had scheduled my exam to be about a week or even less after I returned home from that prep course. So I could just get all
That's a
the information out of
similar
my head.
That's a very similar process that I went through for my CHMM. Same thing, took that week-long course, and then right after, literally like the next day, we took the test. And so it was like fresh in our minds, and we decided to get after it. So, and then did you need a sponsor to like sponsor your application that's an existing CSP? Because that's like the CHMMs, you have to have a sponsor to actually, vouch for you, so to speak.
I'm not sure if that's a requirement. I honestly have no idea. I know
Okay.
for some other things since then, I've had to have, uh, what's the right word? Referrals or recommendation
Yeah.
letters, but I
Right.
don't think I did for the ASP or the CSP. That would
Okay.
be
Yeah.
interesting.
So you mentioned the ASP or the the organization that most of the CSPs belong to. Maybe talk a little bit about that organization that most the CSPs belong to. And
Is
what's
that a
benefit?
thing?
What? Yeah. Well, I mean, don't you belong
Yeah.
to like the ASC? What I
I
can't.
do belong to the ASSP,
Yeah. There
formerly
you
known
go.
as the ASSE. So they
Right.
changed the E for engineers to P for professionals. And
Professionals. Yeah. More
yeah,
inclusive.
and
More inclusive.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those people that wasn't too excited about the change.
Right.
Usually people think of me as someone that's really into change and all those things. And for that one, I was just like, why?
Yeah.
I don't get it, but I'm fine. I'm fine with it. It didn't change my life dramatically. At the time, I was in leadership for the Women in Safety Engineering WISE
Okay. Yep.
Common Interest Group, which is part of the ASSE, ASSP, and we were looking at the new acronym. Like, are we going to be Women in Safety Professionals (WISP)? And that was the only thing that really bothered me. So we had to
Right.
come up with a new E word, and so we came up with Women in Safety Excellence. So we retained the WISE name. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess a lot of people that have a BCSP certification are members of the ASSP, and they're organizations that are they're kind of like symbiotic,
Right.
organisms or organizations. So but you don't need to be a member of ASSP if you have your
Good.
CSP certification. So
Okay.
hopefully
Perfect.
that makes sense. Honestly, anyone that has a BCSP certification, whether it's a CSP or there's SMS and or CET, there's OHST and CHST. So there's a few other ones if you want to go down that whole road. But
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
no, what they all have in common is that you have to maintain a certain amount of CEUs
Right.
to maintain the certification.
Credential.
So it
Yeah.
is easy to, well, I shouldn't say easy. It's simple and straightforward, which isn't necessarily easy sometimes, to maintain CEUs by being an ASSP member. And to go even
Attending the
further,
conference. every
Well,
year, something like
yeah,
that,
that
right?
I mean, that's the most passive way to do it. Myself, I've never had to worry about having enough CEUs when it's research time
Yeah.
because I'm an active, engaged member. So I've run for and been elected to leadership roles, and I do volunteering and other things within the industry. And I know some people aren't as engaged and out there, but I encourage people to do that because you get your CEUs, plus it's just great experience and visibility for the professional too.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's double click into your, social media, experience. One of the things that caught my eye once we became connected is how, how much you're in the social media limelight, so to speak, in a sense. I mean, most listeners don't know. Well, they kind of know because I talked about it. But you're a podcaster, so you're on a podcast show. That's great. You're on my show. That's awesome. But you also do a lot of safety minutes, out there on LinkedIn, and you talked a little bit, and I caught a little bit about these, like that safety minute. You can like ask Google to tell you something about that. I thought that was intriguing. I heard you say something about that. I was like, I got to ask her about that too. That was
Yeah.
intriguing. So
So
tell me about that.
the social media safety minute itself, that is not me. That's Jason Lucas, who's one of my
Oh,
partners in crime or partners in justice with the Safety
okay.
Justice League. So
Right.
that's a different thing.
Right.
But I do have an Alexa flash briefing skill. So hopefully I didn't trigger anyone's
Oh,
devices. But
yeah.
but you can say, Alexa, play my news. And if you've enabled the safety news flash briefing skill as part of your flash briefing skill itself, so Alexa will tell you, the news from NPR and
Yeah.
then your BBC news or whatever you have. And then if
Right.
you've got my safety news in there, she'll play my news too.
That's
So I
pretty
yeah,
neat.
so every week, even before Safety Justice League stuff, every week or even more frequently, I would record anywhere from 1 to 5, 6 minutes safety news. And I make sure that that's pointed to the Alexa flash briefing skill. So whenever
Right.
someone asks for it, it's right there. And then that was a tiny step towards podcasting. So I saw that I have a WordPress website. And if you just click a little box that says podcast, it creates an RSS feed that is basically a podcast.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then I copy paste that RSS feed link into Google Podcasts, Spotify, like all the major platforms. So when I just do my one little 5 to 6 minute safety news spiel once a week now, it goes onto my website, and from there it goes all over the place into all the other
That's awesome.
platforms I have it. Yeah, it's been really fun. It's fun to hear from people saying that they ask their devices for the news and they enjoy listening to me.
I like that
Strange.
idea. I'm gonna have to talk to you offline about that to maybe
Yeah,
help me figure that out. I
yeah,
am
yeah.
sometimes a little technically challenged, but not. I mean, I'm not too bad for an older guy. But okay, I'm having fun with this.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
my goal was to have an Alexa skill. And I started to look into that, and it's like, ooh, a skill is a whole thing. There's coding involved. It's a lot.
right.
So I learned
Okay.
I could do a flash briefing skill that is a little bit lower level,
Yeah.
but more approachable. And it still gets you on the voice device. So I'm
There you
stoked.
go.
It's
There you
there.
go. You
Most
hit it.
people don't know the difference.
So now you're involved with the Safety Justice League podcast, and I'll have to admit for the listeners here, that is one really cool podcast that I've just became aware of, and have been listening to, subscribed, and heavy on safety, which is fantastic because there's so much there. But you guys are a bunch of personalities that's really fun and to listen to, and I've made some connections already just by listening to people that are on your podcast. So it's been really great. Talk
Oh,
about
that's
your
great.
podcast a bit.
So it's kind of one of those pandemic projects because we all linked up pre-COVID, I think.
Okay.
Now I have to
Yeah.
think way back. I'm pretty sure we all connected pre-COVID.
Right.
And I've only met one of the Safety Justice League members in person in real life. And yeah,
Okay.
so that's Jason Lucas. We met last year at the ASSP Safety Conference, Safety 2019.
Right.
at the Wise Lounge.
Okay.
So we met there and we talked about how we should collaborate to do a we collaborated on a speaker proposal session, which was for Safety 2020, which ended up being virtual. So it worked actually perfectly based on our subject matter, which was using social media to amplify safety messages.
Right.
So the two of us were talking, and then he had already been talking to Jason Maldonado and Nathan Brayman on LinkedIn, and so we just started like a group message on LinkedIn, and we're all we're not like we're like-minded, but we have very differing opinions and backgrounds, but we link up on a lot of like the big main topics
Right.
within safety. So
Right.
kindred spirits, otherwise good synergy. So we have this LinkedIn group message going on, and I forget how this even started, to be honest. Like, we started doing these Ask a Safety Pro videos where
Right.
people would ask us questions or we'd ask each other a question. We just do a selfie video and answer the question. And then Jason Lucas would clip the videos together and we'd post them on LinkedIn. So those started to get some traction. And then we thought, well, what if we did something else? And around the same time, one of our friends, Kyle Kruger, who has his own podcast, Probability Matters, he messaged us and said, you guys are kind of like a Justice League of safety. Like, alone, you're good, but as a group, it's something else.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so we thought, oh my gosh, Safety Justice League, that's cool.
That is
And
cool.
Nathan Brayman, aka Redbeard, he's a serial domain name buyer, and he looked up safetyjusticeleague.com. He said, no one has it, it's available. He bought it, and so that pretty much prompted
Started
everything
out.
else to happen. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, for the listeners that are listening on this podcast, I recommend you guys check out the Safety Justice League. It's a fantastic podcast, very interesting and great topics. And so you can hear Abby on there and others, and you'll get a lot out of it for sure. So, um, you
Thank
know,
you.
yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I noticed, and I was kind of like, what's the value of having a CSP in the industry? Because why get the credential, right? I mean, that's kind of like the big question. If I'm in the safety, okay, you want to do it to advance your career, basically. And I Googled kind of a question on that. I said, well, what's the base salary for a CSP? And they basically came back and said, look, starting salary or average salary, not starting, but average is like $97,000 to $125,000 a year. I was like, whoa, okay, that's pretty good salary for a CSP. I mean, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And then, and it ends up seems like $20,000 more for someone who doesn't actually have a CSP, doing the same types of tasks in the field. A lot of times is what they said. And I was like, wow, okay. So not only is there a financial incentive, and then there's the educational perspective and incentive, but it's that career advancement of just moving up to that next thing, right, in your for your goal.
For sure. Yeah. It became one of those career advancement goals for me when I was working as a safety director, and you come up with your performance plan and all that stuff with your boss. And it seems like you need to have something, to shoot
Yeah.
for. And in these professions, it's like, well, you need something to demonstrate that you're proficient, because people don't really understand what a safety professional does. It's such like a wide spectrum of what people actually do in the field. And then, and there's debates probably every single day on LinkedIn about the professionalism of the field and what is a safety professional. And I don't really have the answer for that, because it could vary by industry. People come at the profession from multiple different ways. People come from the field. I came from the academic side. I'm not saying, and I know that my path isn't better than anybody else's, it's just different.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I think that's one thing that makes the field really great. And so there's been some debates, like I said, about the profession itself, but honestly, I think when people come at it from different ways, they bring so much to the table. And I've learned a lot from people that didn't come from the academic route. So I appreciate that. But
Yeah,
for
the guys in
sure,
the trenches, the guys who've
yeah.
done it in the real world, right? And
Yeah,
been
that
on
have actually
site.
operated equipment and made
Yeah,
things, like they definitely have an edge on me. I mean, I learned these things, but I've never actually been the person that's the crane operator,
yeah,
but
right.
I could tell you a lot about cranes, and I taught over 30 operators so that they could pass the NCCCO crane exams years ago. So,
That's good.
it works. Like we can work together. But also there must have been some kind of marketing pitch years ago for the CSP to be that gold standard. So it's definitely become one of those things that when an employer's looking to hire a safety professional, they know that they should ask for someone with, 5+ years of experience and a
Right,
CSP or
right.
eligibility to earn a CSP. And I also blame, in a good way, I guess, the Army Corps of Engineers, because they specified that on projects for someone to be a site safety and health officer, that they have a CSP and so many years of experience in order to be that highest level of site safety and health officer. So I feel like in the let's see, 2008, 9, 10, whatever that is, to
Mm-hmm.
late mid 2000s,
Yeah,
whatever.
mid to late
I feel like,
2000s.
yeah, I feel like that's when certification or credentials really became a big deal, that
A
you would
big
need
deal.
to have that to progress in your career.
Yeah, I mean, the credentials I think really got a lot of more press and coverage on the fact that, hey, this is something we want for our professionals in the industry. But I can remember back into the late '90s, the CHMM credential was like, hey, if you want to be a person that's managing hazardous waste, or in the business of managing hazardous materials, you need this credential. So I can remember a lot of industrial clients requiring that as a aspect of your job. So, but that's good. I mean, so let's talk a little bit about the roles in the industry today. I mean, so we're in this pandemic. Oh my gosh, we're talking about safety. I mean, what are the safety professionals doing to help, these companies with COVID-19?
I think we're still doing what we've always done, which is battling for our legitimacy every single day. It's a
This is
weird
this
profession.
pandemic. I think this pandemic has raised the awareness of the value of a CSP.
I don't know if I've really seen that, because
Really?
I've seen plenty of my peers that even they have CSPs that they've said, nope, I'm not going to talk about mask or no mask, or I can't get into medical uh, talk about how COVID is transmitted, or things like that, that people are kind of recusing themselves or stepping back from these conversations because they're not a medical professional.
Right.
And for me, I feel that I agree with you that it should be a time that's a catalyst for what a safety professional does and where we can really shine. But I mean, when I was watching the cable news shows every night for a while there back in March, April, May, and I
Yeah.
gave up on that recently. It's too much.
It's
But at
too
the time,
much.
yeah, but at the time I was like, why?
Uh,
Why isn't there a safety professional being interviewed? It was
right. Or a
always a
CIH.
doctor
Where's
or
the
a CIH.
CIH? Right.
Well, the AIHA did step up and out and really just stepped up in their communication and published a bunch of guides. I think their website is called Back to Work Safely. I think.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
forget now, but that's actually an interesting story that's going to be on the Safety Justice League podcast next week for Safe and
Ah,
Sound Week.
okay.
So,
There you go, listeners. You
yeah.
got a new podcast, topic to listen to. That's gonna be
Yeah,
good.
so go check it out. We interviewed Larry Sloan, who is the CEO of the AIHA, and they recently went through a rebranding. And he talked about how Mark Cuban actually was the catalyst for AIHA to come up with these guides for helping small businesses, small employers of different types, like nail salons.
Right.
I can't think of another example, but really any other kind of industry you can think of, they came up with these guides for reopening safely that are geared specifically towards small businesses, but of course could be used by any size business. So I like how they approached it. ASSP was a little more cautious and slow about how they responded, but ultimately they do have a landing page with some great resources. It's ASSP.org/coronavirus. And one of the resources at the top of that page is from the Women in Safety Excellence Group, which is a crowdsourced Google Sheet that has several different resources about COVID and reopening. And so there's infographics and links and template programs and all kinds of things on there. And it's been a really excellent resource. And then, yeah, I just wondered where the Safety Pro was in all of this.
Right,
And
right.
there were some past Obama era OSHA leaders that were speaking up and speaking out. So I think it was Dr. David Michaels was one, and Jordan Barab were both speaking out a lot about
Hmm.
basically where's OSHA, what's
Yeah,
going
where's
on.
OSHA? What's going
Yeah,
on? Where's the CIHs? I mean,
yeah.
that's what CHs do is, identify these types of these issues and try to create solutions to prevent them. And then the safety professional, in my mind, is the person who's trying to help, implement safe practices, right? I mean, and making sure people are safe
Should
and
be.
social distancing properly and helping educate.
So something that's happened is a lot of safety professionals have been relegated to the temperature checkers and
Oh, yeah.
symptom checkers, at the door, literally, of an organization. So we talked about that in one of the earlier Safety Justice League episodes too. One of them was called Lockdown, and there's a couple other ones we've talked about COVID here and there, and how it's it's not panning out. I mean, this is horrible. This sounds awful that like the pandemic isn't making us look good, but safety professionals weren't being turned to at their organizations by executives and other business decision makers. And it just makes you wonder why. And
Right.
so I feel that the profession has some steps that we need to take, and I don't know what they are specifically, to make sure it's looked at as a legit profession, that people understand what we do. And I do feel that's why AIHA did a lot of that rebranding, is so that people would understand this is what we do. You need to call on us in cases like this, in
Right.
this pandemic.
Absolutely.
We write
Yeah.
these plans, we analyze these risks, we do this all the time.
Well, I think, in a lot of companies and industries, the safety guy or person, the gal, sometimes they can have a negative view from, a lot of these perspective. I mean, unfortunately, most safety professionals that I know are there to, they're lending a hand, they're helping out. It's the ones that are maybe a little bit of a nag, so to speak, or
Yeah,
the ones that's always griping or have the power trips, like, where's your safety glasses, man? Get off my site.
the
Those
safety
are
cop.
yeah, yeah. That's not the approach to really encourage in the adoption of all the safety that we're looking for to, improve our work life, right? So I think that's been a challenge for some. And these companies, they ought to be adopting, safety professionals, expertise and input quickly into this because I mean, a lot of these people are still trying to resume business, right?
Yeah, yeah. And something else I saw, because you can see people looking for work on LinkedIn and other places, where there was actually a lot of safety professionals that lost their job during all this. So
Yeah,
talk
right.
about backwards.
How,
It
why,
just,
right?
well, I used to joke, safety first, when things
Yeah.
go bad, safety's first to go.
But that's not
Sad.
the right safety first that I'm
It really
thinking,
isn't.
right?
Nope.
I mean, where's the job safety, tailgate meetings to start my job at work today with all the COVID? I mean, let's make sure we get the proper PPE. We're doing the proper, safety distancing and things like that, right? That's interesting, but
Well, yeah, the safety pro should be coaching the leaders of the company to make sure that they're bringing
exactly.
safety practices to the workplace every day, even if the safety professional isn't right there watching them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then, the more you give, I guess, praise for good things and doing the right thing, and I think you get better adoption, right, into the culture
For
and what you're trying to
sure. Yeah.
accomplish, right?
Yep. And it is hard to have that positive leading approach right now with COVID and all these precautions. But I think by taking the lead on communication and making sure we're giving accurate and timely communication to workers, I think right now during the pandemic, when workers are confused about what information is good and what they should be following, that
Yeah.
makes things difficult for a safety professional. So communication is a huge skill that a safety pro needs to have, and where a safety pro can actually take the lead at their organization during these times.
Yeah,
in these
being obviously,
times.
yeah, being a good communicator. Somebody also is, empathetic,
Mhm.
sensitive. You talked about you have a minor in psychology. I mean, I think you have to be a psychologist to really be effective in this job too.
Wish I got the major. I could use it.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Because there's a lot of characters out there, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, psychology helps. It almost makes things too insidious, you know. If you understand a lot about psychology and communication, it's like, ooh, I get how to talk to these people.
Oh, yeah.
So it
Reverse
helps. And I think,
psychology.
right, yeah. I think all safety professionals or any of us that are working with people on the safety and health side, we should have some kind of dabbling that we do in psychology topics to understand how the brain works and how people form habits and how people form good habits or break bad habits, and
Right.
um, how that relates to their safety practices at work.
Well, that's good. So, we've been talking about a lot of these cool safety things. And is there anything that's in particular on your mind in the safety, arena right now that seems to be kind of lacking, or things that you'd like to see or do? Any technology that's out there that you're kind of thinking it'd be cool to help, you know, make the job better?
Yeah, there's lots of really interesting stuff out there right now with artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. So
Right.
these are the things that I'm super interested in right now, because in safety, we have this data problem. Like, we want a lot of information, we want a lot of data, but often we just become data collectors and it's just a bunch of stuff. And
Right.
so there's so many tools out there now, which it's tough to invest in these things, but I think it's worthwhile. But there's a lot of resources out there where the data gets crunched by artificial intelligence, and it can give you really interesting, relevant, and very particular information that can help a safety professional make better recommendations to their organization so that they can make changes or make even just like small pivots on what they're doing and change things slightly for better worker safety performance. So I encourage people to work with the robots, like accept that artificial intelligence is in our lives and that it's here to make our job easier. It's not taking our jobs away.
So, have you experienced the use of, say, your mobile devices to record near misses and to, those types of activities, or your tailgate safety meetings, and be able to just, check off and document the fact you did it or you identified something? And have you been using those types of tools?
Yeah, there's an app for that. There's apps
There's a
for all
right.
this stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So I think, apps are like a first step for a company or even just a safety professional individually to get that familiarity with using technology. But I encourage people to look at things that are more systemic and more solution oriented, that the app is just part of it.
Right.
So
Right.
the app itself, if you're just gathering a bunch of observations and pictures or typing things in, that's more data. And who's managing that? Who's doing anything with that? So it just becomes the
Yeah.
same as your paper-based inspection that you would look at once a month or once a quarter, and then you'd see someone's little note scribbled, hey, the first aid kit's been out of bandages for 3 months.
Right. I mean, you got to be able to harness the data to assess it, to analyze it, and understand like what are the trends are, right?
Absolutely.
Um,
But the data that a safety professional collects, even if you're just going out and doing like a weekly inspection, it might have some near misses or injuries or incidents. Even just that amount of data, it is more than what an individual can even manage and
right.
understand and process.
Right.
So already we have that problem where we're missing things. And those are missed opportunities to prevent an injury, a fatality, or other unplanned, unwelcome thing from happening at our places of work.
So, what, in your experience, the demographic of the workforce, who do you think's most, has the most interest in embracing safety, as a demographic, or the ones who are most resistant to safety as a demographic?
You know, I don't think it's even age based. As far
No.
if you're pointing to a demographic based on age,
Yeah.
but I think as far as just embracing safety, I mean, I've been burned by really young people coming into a
Okay.
construction environment where, they're an apprentice and they already act like a crusty, superintendent that's
Experienced.
been in the
Yeah.
field for 40 years. So,
Right.
which is just a shame.
Right.
So it really depends on who's mentoring the new people when they come in. So as with safety over the years, new hire orientation and those first communication opportunities are key, but we have to make sure that we've got the right people that are doing that, because if they're being mentored by a crusty grumpy person, they're even a young person new to the field is going to all of a sudden be crusty and grumpy, which
Right.
is a waste.
Yeah.
So at Safety Justice League also, we talk about the olds, and old is just a mindset. Like a young person in their 20s can still have an old mindset.
Sure.
So I like when I see a curious safety person where they're wanting to learn more about different apps and solutions and wanting to learn more about different safety philosophies and theories, and they're not already subscribed to one particular school of thought.
Right.
So I like that. I think, of course, no matter what age you are, if you're still trying to pick up new things and learn and listen to these podcasts, I mean, that's huge.
Well, that's good. I mean, so it's not, there's no real one group of people worse than the other. They're all about the same.
They all can be the worst sometimes, that's for sure. I mean, I've had some really interesting experiences training public works employees and construction workers and different
Sure.
trades. And, you can get like down the rabbit hole of, carpenters are awful or
Yeah.
whatever. That's a bad
Right.
example because it's not true. But,
No.
you can go down those pathways.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, the podcast is the Environmental Transformation Podcast. And what we're trying to do with this show is shine a light on individuals that are making a difference and making an impact in the industry. So, Abby, what are you doing to transform the industry?
Every day. What do you mean? Just kidding. I mean, I'm just trying to bring sometimes off the wall stuff to people and just challenge them. So whether it's challenging people within my own organization with just a question, a line of
Sure.
questioning, or bringing something new to the table, or challenging other safety professionals to look at things differently. I feel that just my perspective, but also now that I have a platform, my ability to bring other people's perspectives into the conversation who we never used to hear from. I
Right.
just got sick of hearing from the same dozen people at every event, or the caricature of those same dozen people at every single event. And so I pushed my way in, but I feel that the ultimate goal of me pushing my way in was to then open the door or reach back to bring other people forward. So
Oh,
I'm
that's great.
yeah, I'm just enjoying seeing different conversations happening. And I feel like things are happening a little bit quicker. And I feel that social media is helping things be discussed quicker. And that's great. For some people, it makes them very uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I like
But
it
I can see you're a little bit of an extrovert, so that's awesome. I mean, you're
a
out
little.
there and a little, but doing that podcast, doing your Alexa stuff, and your safety minutes, and your social media stuff is fantastic. And I highly recommend people to connect with you on LinkedIn. That's a great platform you have there. And I'm really encouraged that we had this conversation today. Again, I'm really excited to meet a few of the other folks on your podcast that you work with there. Um, I was listening to the Michael Bowman podcast you guys did a while back, where he was
Very
talking
cool.
about him doing his little kung flu splits.
That's right.
And when your Justin, I think, posted on LinkedIn,
Oh, Jason
or
posted like
Jason,
a Van Dam or
yeah, a Van
something.
Dam. That was the funniest thing ever. I just about lost it. I was
And what
that's
does that have to do
classic.
with safety?
Yeah,
It's like we're using some humor to catch people a little bit off guard,
it
and
was
then they're more
brilliant. It
likely to
was
listen.
Tell Jason it was brilliant. I just loved
Awesome.
it. It was great. So,
That's awesome.
but pretty cool stuff.
Thank
But
you.
let's stay connected. Thanks for joining the podcast today and talking about the CSP credential and what it's done for you in the industry and what it can do for others in the industry. And I'm sure we could talk a lot more about what the various types of tasks and roles that you're working in the industry. But we're going to be running out of time, obviously, here, so we'll have to save it for another time. But I really
Awesome.
appreciate you coming on, and then looking forward to catching up down the road.
Thank you so much.
All
This
right.
is
Have a
fun.
great time. Yeah. Bye bye.